Well, hello and welcome back, and happy Valentine's Day if you celebrate it, and if you don't, well then, not. I always thought it was amusing how Valentine's Day can be abbreviated to VD, which is also abbreviation for venereal disease, so that's fun association. Anyway, what are we watching? Well, it's Romantic Day, so we're watching Romantic Movie, aka Spring, or Spring. It's a 2014 little film that not many people I know of have seen. I actually saw this because a partner of mine at the time brought it over under the guise of a simple romance movie, and I was like, all right, sure. Romance films aren't usually my cup of tea, I'll be honest. They're not all bad, there are some good ones, I'll be real, but it's not what I'm geared up for, you know what I mean? So she brought this, and I was pleasantly surprised. Yeah, so there exist, I guess, horror adjacent, you would call it. It's not really a horror, it's way more romance than it is like horror, but there's like body horror stuff happening. Anyway, whatever, we're gonna get into it. So if you haven't been here before, get the intro out of the way. If you haven't been here before, I watch a movie, I sit down right after it, and I ramble on in one take what my thoughts are. And for better or worse, that means there's no jump cuts, there's no script, there's none of that fancy stuff. So a budget of less than a Timbit. But that's how we like it here. We want it raw and natural. Anyway, spoiler, you know the drill. I'm going to be talking about the film, blah, 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 blah. I've said this a million times. You know what a spoiler it is, I'm assuming. If you don't, then it means that there are spoilers, which means that it could spoil the film for you. So anyway, let's get into it. This is the spoiler zone. If you don't want spoilers, skip ahead on the timestamp to the little part that says thoughts or, you know, time rating or whatever I say. And unless it says spoilers in brackets, then skip that, because then I'm an idiot and I said a spoiler in this non-spoiler section. So I always try to warn you. Anyway, let's get right into the movie. So we have our main character, Evan, who's taking care of his sick mom. We learn his backstory throughout the film, but I'm going to tell you now so we can get it out of the way. So basically, he lost his father while his mom was sick. He was taking care of his sick mom, and boom, there you go. Anyway, his mom dies. So that's rough. He's after the funeral, I guess. He's at the bar with his buddy Thomas, and he's trying to cheer him up and all that. And there's some scrappy guy who's trying to pick a bar fight with him, whatever. And Tom's like, "Hey, leave him the fuck alone. Like, he's had a rough day, etc." Anyway, bar fight happens, and Evan ends up sucker punching this guy, or maybe it wasn't a sucker punch. It might have been clean. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, the guy's on the ground. He's kicking him and shit, and he works at that bar apparently as like a cook or something, and long story short, he gets fired. That's fun. He calls up a sympathy relations partner for some quick bedroom entertainment, I suppose. She's kind of into it though, and like bails halfway through, which is great. But she does, before she leaves, suggest that maybe he gets out of town to clear his head. So that's great. Wakes up the next day and the cops are knocking on his door. So obviously the bar fight went further than it should have. Anyway, needless to say, spur of the moment, he's like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna get the hell out of here. So he calls up a travel agency or something. He's like, book me a flight to the like wherever. Where would you go? They say Italy's nice. So he's like, all right, I'm going to Italy, which he does. His first day there, he's wandering around, seeing the sights, you know, the Colosseum, all that kind of stuff. He runs upon a group of Brits, guys from the UK. They're fun, they're friendly, loud, but you know, I don't know if they're footballers or not, or hooligans or whatever you want to call them. But anyway, they hang out and they're like, you know what? You're all right. We're gonna go for a little drive to a smaller town. It's like a coastal town. You want to come with us? And Evan says, you know what? Sure. Like, he has no plans. He's just there to do whatever. So they do, and they go to this other town, and he sees this girl as they're walking to their hostel or whatever, and he ends up seeing this girl later at a bar when he's there with his new friends and whatnot, and she's like, hey, listen, how about I go home with you or whatever? And he's like, oh wow, that's presumptuous. Are you a prostitute? Because they're like the 20 questions. He's like, I'm not smuggling drugs up my bum for your boss, just a heads up. And anyway, she's like, listen, are you coming or not? And he's like, well, I have to get the next round, but why don't you come sit with my friends? And she's like, no, takes off. It's like, okay, well, whatever. Of course his buddies make fun of him, like, you blew it. I guess, if it's a hooker though, right? Like, whatever. Not a huge loss. Anyway, needless to say, he buys the round. Anyway, next day, his buddies are off to their next destination. They're going to Amsterdam or something, I guess, and say, hey, you gonna come? And Evan's like, you know what? No, I'll chill here. I kind of like it here. Cool. All right. They say their goodbyes. etc. He decides, okay, well, since I'm going to stay here, I need some money. He has a little bit of inheritance from his mom, but not like enough to live off of or whatever. So he sees an ad for a farmhand job, and he goes down to this farm and meets the owner of the farm by the name of Angelo, who's an older guy, lives alone, basically just needs help around the farm. So basically, you work for me, I give you a place to live and a tiny bit of cash, etc. So that's a pretty good deal, right? He has no farm experience, but the guy decides to give him a chance anyway. Over the course of the film, you see them, bonding, getting kind of closer as, like, buddies and whatnot. Like, there's an age gap, but, like, he's a friendly guy, and Evan's and chill, and they get along. Long story short, whatever. So he's slowly kind of teaching Evan a little bit of Italian just to, like, get around a bit more. His English is okay. We learn that he lost his wife, and, yeah, there's a whole thing there. It's sad slightly, but, what can you do? Anyway, that's happening. He ends up meeting this girl again. Where does he meet her? Can't remember. Oh, yeah. So he goes to, like, an art gallery or museum or something, and he finds her in there, and he approaches her and says, hey, listen, can we, like, go on a date or something? Like, I don't want to just take you home, bag and tag you or whatever. Good guy. He doesn't say that, obviously, but anyway, she agrees. Eventually they go for coffee, and they start talking about their stuff, and their lives and such, and she finally sort of half-ass admits, he's like, you like me, don't you? She's like, I don't know. Clearly she does. So that's great. They come across like a tribute pillar to like some girl who drowned in the water and was carried away, and I don't know if that implies something that we should know later on in the film, but I don't think it does. I think it's just a thing. Anyway, they keep telling stories, they end up kissing, and finally she goes home and they do their thing, if you know what I mean. And as the romance is increasing, you see a flower outside like blooming more, which is neat. And then you see like a slug happening or something. It's like, okay, that's interesting. I didn't really know what to think when I first watched the film, but anyway, that's what happened. Anyway, she wakes up in the middle of the night and she's like pale and kind of like not looking very well, and she like her eyes jarred open and she's like, oh shit. She bails on him while he's still sleeping, and then you see her naked in an alley eating cats. So nice girl, right? Anyway, today's tea is amaretto tea. I don't know if I had that last time. It's really good though. Anyway, non-alcoholic. So the next day he wakes up and he goes to work, and you see Louise at home, and she's kind of tending to herself, and you see the light like makes her getting smoke a little bit, and she's injecting something into her, and that's interesting. Anyway, after work he's in the town again, and he goes to get some gelato, and he runs into Louise again. She's like, he's like, oh yeah, small town, wow. Yeah, so you snuck out last night. And she's like, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. And he's like, oh, fuck, okay, it's like that. And she laughs. No, she's just being a jerk, so that's fun. They go for a walk, and, by the time it's at night, he's at her home, and she has little rabbits, and he finds out she speaks, like, 10 different languages, which is crazy. That's impressive. More talking, they're getting to know each other, etc. They're, getting along, but then she notices her leg's kind of, like, getting fucked up. It's like a rotting piece on it, so she quickly hides it, sneaks off to the bathroom, and is like, I'm gonna go freshen up, and goes to the bathroom, does another ejection thing, and has a shower, and they're eating soup together, and it's all just a lovely thing. He has no idea about like whatever the hell's happening with her leg there and all that, so that's delightful. Anyway, yeah, he's like, you want to come to the beach tomorrow? And she's like, meds kind of make me sensitive to the sun. He's like, okay, so I can only sort of see you like when it's sundown, I guess, eh? What are you, like a vampire or something? Anyway, it's not a vampire, but next day, before he leaves her house, he goes to the bathroom and he looks on the floor and he sees a syringe and he's like, shit. Is she addicted to something? Which is very possible. You never know, right? Yeah, don't know someone's demons. No judgment, by the way. Anyway, that's a later talking point. So he's on the farm and he's talking to Angelo about her, and he's like, this girl and blah blah blah. And again, it's more bonding stuff. This Angelo guy's a cool dude. He's a good guy to work for. I'd work for him. I don't know if I want to do farm work necessarily, but he's a good boss. He's a reasonable fella. Whatever. Neither here or there. They have another hot date night. Before that, sorry, he goes, after he finishes work, he goes into town. He sees like a dead goat with like bite marks on it. So what is it, El Chupacabra? Is that what she is? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. Spoiler alert, she's not a Chupacabra. Although that would be pretty cool. Not the right region though. Anyway, regardless. And they're also not human-ish. Long story short, anyway, whatever. Let's skip ahead, and I'm rambling here. So they have another hot date, and they're really getting along. Like, they're hitting it off for sure. He mentions the syringe, and she's like, listen, it's not drugs. I know it looks bad. I have a medical condition. He's like, okay, fair enough. I'll take your word for it. She mentioned a medical condition before, so it makes sense. Flags over the waiter to take a picture with the phone, and takes a picture of them, and when he gets it back, she's all blurry, and she's like, okay, no more pictures, whatever. And he's like, you moved. Like, come on, man. Anyway. He mentions that he's had this phone for the whole time. He hasn't called home or anything like that. And she's like, oh, well, what about your friends and your family and that? And she's like, tell me about your family. He's like, yeah, I'd rather not. She's like, oh, okay. That's nice. He's like, what did I do? She's like, so you just take a photo of some girl and send it home to your buddies. I try to ask you something nice, and you don't want to talk about it. So what is this? You just want to fuck some foreign girl and show all your buds and brag? That's not it. Follows her down, trying to explain, like, that's not the case. Like, I just don't want to talk about my family. And anyway, they're on the beach, and he ends up talking about his family. So, short-lived. But yeah, the whole thing about his dad and his mom, and now he's alone, basically. He has nobody. And, he has friends and stuff, I guess, but like no family. And he has kind of a moment where he like doesn't break down, but he gets a little emotional. He's like, listen, like, I'm a grown man who misses his parents. Like, and you know what? There's nothing wrong with that at all. I don't know why he was self-conscious about that. That's completely understandable. Anyway, she completely softens up, and his head on her lap, and she's like petting his head and all that shit. And anyway, he's like, okay, well, now you tell me something. And she's like, okay, fine. And she takes a contact out. She says, I actually have 2 different colored eyes. And he looks. He's like, holy shit. Why is that? She's like, oh, my boyfriend used to make fun of it and stuff. She's like, really? That's hard. She's like, no, like, no one has ever made fun of me of it. I don't want to get attention drawn to me. So whatever. Anyway, so she's got a sense of humor. That's fun. Yeah, that's about it. Anyway, we cut to the next day, and more farm stuff, and Angela's showing him how to make a hybrid tree, which is sort of becoming a theme in this thing. So, like, 2 colored eyes and 2 trees together. It goes more than that, but anyway, yeah, how you can take an orange branch and make a little cut in a lemon tree and put the orange, and it'll heal into each other, because I guess they're genetically similar enough. But that means that you could actually have a tree that has lemons and oranges, which is crazy. And I think that's legit too. I read about that somewhere, that someone was doing that with citrus fruits. I don't know if it's just specifically lemons and oranges, or can you do that with like grapefruits, limes, I don't know, apples, like, I don't know, but that's really cool. Doesn't really mean anything to the story other than, the metaphor of like 2 different things coming together, which we'll learn about eventually. So that happens, and Louise at work starts to turn, and she runs out, and she's in a cave, and she has her little rabbit, and she like is doing some kind of like ritual thing where she sacrifices the rabbit, and it's not helping, I guess, her change. So she's hiding in the dark, and she's like, fuck, okay. She goes and starts eating the rabbit, and I guess that helps. I don't know. Anyway, he comes over that night, and she's not feeling well. She's on the couch all bummed out, and she's like, yeah, I'm kind of not feeling well, kind of sick or whatever. I don't want you to get sick. And so he immediately is like the good boyfriend, and he brings like a blanket and a pillow for her, and goes and gets her a drink and all that stuff. And she's like, aw, it's very sweet. Yeah, that's about it. And he mentions, where are your rabbits? Because she sees the cage is empty, and she says, I don't want to talk about it, which is fair. So I guess they were her pets, like not initially meant to be like eaten and sacrificed, but anyway, they gone. Next day, he finishes work early, and Angela lets him off and says, yeah, go enjoy the day, go explore town, whatever. So he does, and he's looking over a railing on the coast, and he sees a bunch of American tourists, and he's like, my God, he's thinking to himself, watching them, like, fuck, they're loud and obnoxious. And one starts singing, oh, say, can you see? And he's wearing, like, the American flag bandana and whatnot. I don't know I don't know what American tourists are like. There's like it's like a young jock group, so they're like stereotypically annoying, and I know that must exist. Anyway, he's kind of like, oh god, that's where I came from. Okay, well, maybe I want to stay here more than I thought I did. Like, what actually is there at home for me? I've got this gorgeous woman. I've got this beautiful town. I have a job. I work for a guy that I actually respect. Like, he's got an okay life going on for him. So I think that's what that was implied with that little scene. I don't really know exactly, but anyway. Louise sees him on her way home from work, and he ends up buying a book from the museum. So the museum had a picture of a woman from like an ancient thing, and she had liked it or something like that, and so he bought her a book about, I guess, this picture or the history of the people that are made in that picture and whatnot. She gives it to him. She's like, oh, we're doing gifts now. And yeah, I guess we are. Anyway, she has a boat, so she's like, oh, by the way, I have a boat. And he's like, you didn't tell me this? So they boat into like a cave system, a coastal cave system, and she's saying that like some of the artifacts from the museum were found like in this cave in that little area there, and like it's a whole thing. Like, not many people know about this. A friend showed it to me or something like that. So that's really cool, and they're having a little back and forth flirting on the boat, good stuff. Yeah. And then, okay, so then they have dinner, and she starts to like turn, and before he notices, she runs off. She's like, you know what? I'm really tired. I'm gonna call it a night. Take her easy. She takes off, and he's just kind of laughing. He's not offended. Like, I'm saying it weird, but like it seemed natural. I'm like, okay, well, this was a good day. I'm good though. Let's move along. And he respects that. Anyway, the same Stars and Strike tourist that was being obnoxious on the beach sees her in an alley. He's like, are you okay? And she's like really out of it, not doing well. So he's like, are you on something? How much to suck my etc. And she's like barely even moving, like leaning slumped against the wall. So he is about to assault her, essentially, when she turns and reveals herself as a little bit more feral than I guess this guy was expecting. Anyway, he's dead. You see him on the rocks in the morning with like his junk torn off or something. I mean, fair, right? I mean, don't be an asshole. Don't be a shitty person, and shitty things, well, they might happen to you still, but whatever. Let's pretend karma exists for a second. Anyway, he's on the rocks. Evan and Angelo have a little talk after work, and they sit down and they look out in the field, and Angelo opens up a little bit more about missing his wife, and Evan's kind of like, man, like, what about other girls? Like, maybe I can help set you up. And he's like, I can't. I love my wife too much. I can't. He doesn't say like I can't cheat on her, but like his heart still belongs to her. There's no room for another person. There's no point in, it's implying basically the soulmate thing. Like, if you meet someone who's your person, that's your person, basically. Anyway, it's a little sad. Like, I feel sorry for the guy, but anyway. He goes over to her house, and she's a little bit colder, and he's like, what's going on? And he brings her flowers, and she takes them and puts them on a table, and they sit down, and then just out of frame you can see them wilting, or not out of frame, but out of his sight you can see the flowers wilting like instantly. Something's up, right? So she basically dumps him. She's like, okay, listen, like, you're a good guy, and I'm just going through some stuff in my life, and blah 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 blah. I'm not ready for this next step or whatever, and I really didn't want to hurt you, and I genuinely did like you and all that stuff. And he's like, listen, like, it's been a week. This is gonna sound like ridiculous, but you might be the love of my life. Like, I'm opening up fully to you here. Like, I am nuts about you. And you can tell that's making her feel even worse and whatever. And he says, listen, if you don't feel anything, I'll respect that. I'll go on my way, and I wish you all the best because you are a remarkable woman. But if you feel anything, I really hope you'll rethink this. And he walks out. There's no like anger or anything. It's kind of a nice thing, I guess. Anyway, upon that, he decides to, I guess, go back home. He talks to Angelo and basically says, like, listen, it's time for me to go, but like, I really appreciate everything you've done for me, taking me in and giving me a job and teaching me the little bit of Italian that I now know, etc. Now we see the cops, and he's like, who are those? And Angela's like, yeah, you should probably go. He's like, what? He's like, yeah, that's immigration. Oh. So he's been staying there, I guess, longer than his visa would have allowed, or maybe he didn't get a visa, or I don't know the rules, but he doesn't have a working permit, I guess. So anyway, Angela gives him the heads up, and he bolts. So that's fun. So now he's a wanted fugitive, not necessarily, but like, you know what I'm saying. He's on the run from the Popo. He decides, I guess, you know, she ended it, but I have to say goodbye properly. Like, he didn't storm out bad or anything, but he just wants to make it a good goodbye. So he goes to her house, knocks on the door, looks through the window and sees like stuff smashed and all on the ground. And so he kicks the door down and sees her on the ground in her true form. So her true form, wow, it's pretty hot. She's got like an octopus tentacle and like a wolf leg and like a frog hand, and like her head is like an octopus kind of, and all bald, and she has like teeth sticking out. It's like, it's fucked. Like some kind of weird eldritch horror looking thing. And he sees her like stretching out frantically, trying to reach one of her syringes. And so he's in shock, and he looks and puts two together, and he's like, oh fuck, okay. And he runs and gets the syringe, and he's gonna give it to her, and her tail, which she has now, slaps it out of his hand, and he gets it again, and she tries to claw it away, but he puts it in her neck. And like literally in front of him, within seconds, she like turns back into her own form, and she's just like kind of like out of it. And he's like, well, look what he just saw, right? And so she, under her breath, is just like, can you run the shower for me? Yeah, that's because she's all covered in slime, and like there's bits of like animal parts that fell off of her when she changed. Lovely. So anyway, long story short, she explains what she is. So she has a genetic condition. She's not like an alien or a monster. He flat out asked her, like, are you a vampire, a werewolf, a zombie, a witch, or an alien? And she's like, I'm human. So I forgot to mention what her job was. It's studying genetics. So clearly this is how she figured out how to make something that would keep her normal. Anyway, she ends up telling him basically that every 20 years or so, she goes through a phase where she has to use stem cells essentially to reform her body. And he's like, what do you mean? She's like from an embryo. And he's like, you're pregnant. She's like, So he's like, okay, I get it. So that's why you dumped me. So you got what you needed from me and then threw me out like yesterday's trash. She's like, that's not what it is. I didn't want to hurt you, like physically. So when she turns, as shown in this blobby bit of mess, she rots, she mutates into like pieces of creatures that we evolved from, or from even before that, and she becomes vicious, and she's even killed, and she's tried to do things to calm it down. She's even looked into like sorcery and stuff, which clearly didn't work, and she dismissed it pretty quickly, like we saw in the cave. She even ate her rabbits, and he's like, well, why? And she's like, there's stem cells or something. I can't remember what she said. It was something along those, like, stem cells are in like their brain somewhere or something. And he's like, well, why don't you just do that? She's like, I do, but it's not as effective. Basically what happens is every 20 years she has to get herself pregnant, and within 7 days of, what's it called? Is it consummate? I don't know what it is. Within 10 days of like that happening, oh, biology, right? Her body consumes the stem cells, reverts her body back to human, and absorbs 50% of the DNA from the father of the little embryo thing that was growing and is consumed by her body. So every 20 years, she has to completely reinvent her persona, because she physically changes too. Her personality changes a little bit. She gets to keep the memories, which is cool, but coming up with like different social numbers and like government documents, and like having to leave stuff to herself in a will, like making up a person, and like it's just super complicated. That's what she's had to do this whole time. I think she said she has houses in like Paris, and so she's been traveling. That's why she knows all these languages. Turns out that the person in that painting that she liked was actually a picture of her that she posed for 2,000 years ago. So this has been going on a while. There's a little short scene about like body count. Like if you had to do this every 20 years, for 2,000 years. She's like, oh, so you care about how many partners I've had? He's like, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. Anyway, that was kind of funny. Long story short, we find out that basically she didn't want to pursue something with him because she was starting to feel something, and what happens is there's a biological blocker in her body. So if she becomes pregnant, her body will automatically consume these stem cells before it becomes like a full fetus or whatever and regenerate her body. But I don't know how she knows. Oh, I do know how she knows this. Sorry. Anyway, she says basically if oxytocin, or is that what it's called? Whatever. She says the thing that causes a woman to fall in love acts as a receptor that blocks the consumption, and then it consumes a batch of cells that's in her own body that are adult stem cells or something like that. But that can only be done once, and then she basically stops having the ability to regenerate or whatever. Yeah, so it's a little complicated, but it's trying to get it in biology. It's like, it's not magic, it's just biology. Like, people thought that individuals with rabies were vampires, but that's just because we didn't know. Like, science hasn't gotten to the point where it understands that yet, and that's what I am. So she's not a monster, she's not supernatural, she's not like an actual eldritch entity. Anyway, he says, listen, you're saying you would die if you fell in love and were pregnant. And she's like, yeah, basically, I wouldn't die right then and there, but my body would consume my adult cells, and that would be the end of the saga. I'd live out my life as a normal human, grow old, and die. Anyway, Evan is, I'm going to say he's like half selfish with this, in the sense that he does not want to lose her, and he's trying to convince her, like, can you not change? Or like, if you change, can we still see each other? And she's like, I'll literally be a completely different person. You may not be attracted to me. I'm not always a babe, like, hello. And I'll have half of your DNA also, so that's kind of messed up, right? Anyway, he says, okay, well, if you only have a short amount of time left, I want to spend every last second of it with you. She's like, that's, you know, some grand romantic gesture, but she doesn't shoot it down, because obviously she's got some feels. Whether or not she's like in love or not is to be determined, but he says, okay, well, let's go on one last road trip. Like, how long have you got? She says, basically, it's 7 days to the dot, like at the end of the season or whatever, and we use different calendars back then, so it's not exactly like ours, whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. She agrees, and they go on like a little road trip, and she says, like, I want to show you the town that I grew up in. And she brings them to Pompeii, which is kind of cool. So they're going through there, and they're looking at everyone, and she like remembers Pompeii, which is crazy. And then she says, do you want to meet my family? And it turns out that a couple of the bodies that were like mummified or whatever, I don't know if I think they're plaster. I don't know if they have the actual bodies still there. I assume they don't. But anyway, they're there, and it's her mom and her dad and her brother, and she reveals basically her mom had the same thing, but she gave it up to bring her into the world and to be with her father, even though unfortunately they died. So basically, it's a biological insurance that you will reproduce if your partner is serious and suitable about it. And that's the whole thing about, you know, it's not magic. Like, if you're in love, the spell's broken. It's, if you feel genuine love for your partner, it's assumed that it's mutual, and biologically your body says, okay, well, now we're actually going to create the baby and push it out, and you can raise it, and then that's how you'll reproduce. But if you don't find a partner who's going to help take care of you guys, we're just going to keep regenerating you until you find one. That's kind of cool. Long story short, she yeah, the Pompeii thing and the family, and it's hereditary from her mom and all that stuff that I said. And as pre-dawn is coming and like the sun is rising and whatever, she's like, tell me about the finite life, you know, like what am I looking for? And he starts telling her, and the camera's just showing him. Well, you see, like, you hear like a bunch of like really squishy, gross, like sloppy sounds. So obviously she's mutating in his lap as the sun's coming up, and finally like the sounds stop, and he finishes telling her about what he's talking about, and zooms in on their little hands together, and still got the same nail polish on and different colors and all that crap. And zoom out, and she's in her same body. So obviously she's in love with him. They're going to have a child, and she's going to live the rest of her life as a mortal human, and that's the end. So, cool. What did I think? I genuinely enjoyed this film. Like, I'm not huge for romance movies. Not even huge for romance in general, but that's neither here nor there. It was good. Like, it's the development of the characters, the way that they take this seemingly supernatural angle or pseudo supernatural angle and turn it into what this movie ended up being is very clever. Like I said, I watched it under the false pretense of thinking that it's just a romance movie, right? But I was pleasantly surprised because of the extra romantic or non-romantic aspect of the film, the whole thing that Louise is going through. Without spoilers, because I mean, they tell you early on enough so that you know that there's something up, but I still don't want to spoil it for you, so I'm going to try not to say anything too revealing. But what their relationship goes through, I guess is the best way I can put it, if you skipped ahead and you don't want spoilers, is pretty intense. The visuals are not like super high budget. Like, I don't think this is a very high budget film, but the things that you do see are quite good. And I remember my first thought when I saw like the big reveal was like, what the fuck? So there's that. Wow, this is great, eh? Giving you guys so much useful information. Fun thing, when I watched The Walking Dead, I like fallen out of it and I got back into it again. There was a character on there, I can't remember the character's name, but I'm like, this character looks familiar. Anyway, turns out that the girl who plays Louise ended up playing a character on The Walking Dead, so that's a fun little fact. Neither here or there. How was the romance in the film? It was pretty genuine feeling. Like, I get why he fell for her, and I get why she kind of liked him back, and it didn't feel forced or anything, which a lot of films do feel like, I hate to say, which is okay. So even when I still thought it was just a romance movie, I was like, okay, this is pretty decent, you know, for what it is. How were the horror parts of it? Pretty solid. So it doesn't go all out. Like, you're not having, like, you know, something going around killing people everywhere and blood flying and all that. There's a lot of body horror in it. Or not a lot, but there's a fair amount of body horror. That's what it leans into specifically. And the visuals are pretty neat. They're not perfect. Like I said, it's not a huge budget film. But I feel like for what they were trying to accomplish, they absolutely nailed it. Especially that one scene where I would assume they put most of their money into. Was genuinely off-putting enough to not seem completely fake. So there's that. The acting was fine. The characters were good. The pace of the story was actually pretty good too. The setup, like the whole reason he's even there, it made sense, you know, clearing your mind type situation without saying too much again. Sometimes I wonder if I should just do like a pure spoiler reviews, you know, like just assume that people don't care or they've seen the film, because I could talk more about it in detail. But what else can I say about it? There's basically three main characters. That's really it. You got Evan and Louise, obviously, and then Angelo. And they're all pretty good characters. They have their own unique personalities that aren't super cliche. You know, they have they're fun to watch. No matter who's interacting with who, it's generally pretty good. Yeah, I mean, that's about all I gotta say. Like, it's one of those movies where you should just watch it and see what you think. It's not gonna be everyone's cup of tea. Like, I don't want to say it's like The Shape of Water, because it's not, but it's like along the same kind of lines of either you like it or you don't. I feel like that's gonna be most people's opinion. So, me, I did genuinely like it. So, let's go to the rating. What am I rating this one? I'm going to give it an 8.2. I really do genuinely like this film. Not everyone's going to agree with me on that one. I guarantee you there's going to be people who are giving it like a 4 or something. Some might give it a 6. I don't know, but I think it's an 8.2. That's my thoughts. If you've seen it and agree, let me know what you think. I'm fishing for comments. Don't do that. Don't comment just because I asked you to. Sorry. Ignore that completely. we'll just leave it at that, I guess, because I'm rambling now. Anyway, good film. I do recommend it. Is it a date night movie? You know what? Yes, it actually could be, because it worked for me and my partner at the time. So you know what? Throw it on. It's got enough romance to entertain the person who wants romance, and it's got enough not romance to entertain the person who's not super into romance. So yeah, check it out. All around solid film. Spring 2014. Boom.